Hello there, welcome to Business and Beyond. As countries around the world are racing to find cleaner, greener and more efficient ways to move people and goods, Rwanda is positioning itself as a leader in electric mobility. On this episode, we will have a conversation with the country manager for Volkswagen Mobility Solutions, Rwanda. We will also have a conversation with farmers who are using electric tractors to understand how technology is improving productivity in the agriculture sector. You will be with me, Naringwa Fieramotoni. As we continue the conversation on Rwanda's journey towards sustainable transportation, we are joined by Serge Kamuhinda, the CEO of Volkswagen Mobility Solutions Rwanda. Serge, to even start the conversation, when you're talking about Rwanda's journey towards sustainable transportation, how does VW fit into the picture?
I think we are the first pioneers. We were the first company to introduce electric vehicles and charging stations in 2019. And since then, you can see that this sector has grown exponentially, I would say. So I would say that we are a pioneer, and we have even ventured in other projects such as electric tractors. So I would say as well that even for the cars that are using fuel, these are fuel-efficient vehicles, and they're using a cleaner fuel than the fuel that was here before. We also, in partnership with the government, made a case for cleaner fuel, and there was a very fast response. And now you can see that we have cleaner fuel on the market in form what is called more gas. And I would say we are a good partner for sustainable mobility.
Yeah, and maybe for someone who doesn't even understand, what is the importance when you're talking about even the transition, when you're talking about adoption of cleaner solutions? How critical is it, and what also positions Rwanda at an advantage to adopting all these new technologies?
If you look at the studies around air pollution, you find that in Rwanda we have quite a high air pollution, and that has significant impact on the health of citizens. And I would say if you look at the studies, they even say that the impact is more severe on children because of their height. And so that's the first impact. What is more concerning is that this fuel is imported and comes at even a higher cost in terms of macroeconomy because it impacts our trade balance. Yet we have locally clean, renewable energy. That's why for Rwanda, it is a no-brainer that we should go clean. It's both healthier and makes more sense economically.
In partnership with the government of Rwanda and other stakeholders, Volkswagen Mobility Solutions Rwanda introduced the Gen Farm project to rural communities, bringing fully electric farm tractors closer to farmers and advancing agricultural mechanization.
This is a project jointly implemented by Volkswagen and the government of Rwanda to promote climate-smart agriculture. The project is established on approximately a hectare of land owned by the government of Rwanda, where Volkswagen is responsible for developing the infrastructure on the site. As you can see, we have environmentally friendly building that is well constructed and includes rental office spaces as well as a conference hall that can be used for meetings and training sessions related to agriculture. On the other hand, we also have environmentally friendly motorcycles and electric tricycles that help transport farmers produced from their fields to market and between different markets. In addition, we have a tractor manufactured by Volkswagen that runs entirely on electric power.
One of the main challenges we used to face was relying on manual labor. and hand hoes for cultivation, which often slow down farming activities and made farming difficult. This machine has brought significant improvements by reducing the workload. Before we started using it, farming was very labor-intensive. Sometimes land would remain uncultivated because there were not enough workers available. However, with this machine, 2 hectares of land can now be cultivated in about 4 days. This helps reduce labor costs and increases productivity.
I have worked in mechanized agriculture for nearly 5 years. I have spent the 2 last years here at Volkswagen. While before that I worked for several different organizations. What makes these electric machines unique compared to others is that they cultivate the land evenly and roughly without leaving any sections untouched, which is a common problem with some conventional machines. Another advantage is that they do not harm the environment because they not use petroleum-based fuels.
The electric tractors proved to be an affordable solution for farmers, reducing operating costs while providing a sustainable and efficient alternative to traditional farming equipment.
Our project mainly targets local farmers. A farmer can contact us and request plowing services, and we can then dispatch a tractor to their farm to cultivate the land. In terms of pricing, we have tried to keep our rates lower than those charged by diesel-powered tractors. Currently, the cost ranges between 80,000 and 90,000 Rwandan francs, depending on the condition of the land. Furthermore, this technology provides a practical solution to challenges related to climate change and rising costs of agriculture projects. Another advantage is that the tractor is easy for its driver to operate.
From transforming agriculture to advancing sustainable mobility, Volkswagen's footprint in Rwanda continues to grow.
And now just want to look at the broader picture for Volkswagen. Remember when it entered into the Rwandan market, there was quite a huge buzz around it, the excitement around the assembly plant being opened here. Maybe how has it been since the assembly plant, since even VW in itself came into Rwanda, and until today, how much impact have we seen across the economy?
Yeah, I think there have been several milestones. One big milestone since we started was the fact that we also launched the mobility services, and that has enabled many people to participate. For example, 90% of the cars that you see in Move are not owned by us, but are owned by private entrepreneurs, people who buy these cars and put them on our platform. And I think it's something we are very proud of because it shows that the growth of Volkswagen also goes with the growth of local entrepreneurs. Another big milestone was the introduction of electric vehicles, the first really to be introduced by Volkswagen in Sub-Saharan Africa, and introducing charging stations as well. And then there was, I would say, smaller milestones in terms of the different type of vehicles that we were able to introduce. We now have more than 10 different types of vehicles. When we started, we only had started with the Polo and the Passat, and now we have big SUV, mid-sized SUV, and even pickups. And then something that we were very proud of, I think one of the big highlights was when Rwanda hosted UCI, and we were a strategic partner for the UCI, where we were able to provide 119 vehicles. And really that, I think, was the the apex of our journey so far, because it showed what Rwanda can accomplish, and it showed that we were together. One of our motto is moving with Rwanda, and that was a highlight for us. And of course, along the journey, we have employed now close to 300 people that are directly employed. We have also a different type of vehicles that we don't own, but we sell directly. And this year, in May, basically last month, a big milestone for me as well was that we are able now to take on the direct responsibility of the workshop, which had been under license. And I think we will be much better able to provide a service that is at par with our brand expectation. And so I think in general we are growing, and it's very rare for an original equipment manufacturer that you'd find such a direct involvement in the direct sales, in mobility services, in workshop, on top of the assembly business. And that is really to show that there is a big trust in that we enjoy from our board in continuing to grow the business here.
When you talk about big trusts, one thing that comes to mind is, even you've highlighted the journey, and I've seen the portfolio has also been growing over the years, then that means also there is heavy investment backing to earn this trust, to show that we are capable and to continue with the services. So in terms of numbers, when you're looking at the investments that have already been put in place, maybe you can just highlight it for us. How are they looking? And also return over profitability.
We've been profitable since, actually, the funny thing, since COVID. The first few months of COVID were a big scare for us because there was no movement. But then we learned how to be more efficient. And since then we are profitable. That is why also the investment has kept growing. And then there has been, I would say, different type of investments. So one type of investment you'd find in the facility, in the equipment, and what you see generally when you come to visit us. And then the other type of investment is the investment we put into people. If you look at the people we're employing, and there are also people we are indirectly employing because they depend on this business. And then there are other types of investment that are sort of driven by the desire to use Rwanda as a launch pad for innovation. But also, since this year, we have founded a regional team called Future Team. And that team is headquartered in Nosken. And it is in charge of innovation within the Volkswagen Group Africa. And so these are people who are not only from Rwanda, but from different countries in Africa, and that will help the brand to grow in Africa. So as you can understand, we're talking about big amounts of money. I will not be able to tell you in detail each cost item, what it took, but I think it's fair to say that it was a first for Volkswagen in Sub-Sahara, remains a big footprint for Volkswagen in Sub-Sahara. And also if you compare to other international investors in Rwanda, the fear is always also from many people that they understand that, oh, after the 5 years, something happens and then they disappear. And what you could see is that actually throughout the years, we've been ever more present.
Ever more present and here to stay.
Yes.
You've touched on about 300 jobs, direct jobs have been created. And I just want to look at that. Skill gap is one of the main challenges across different sectors. How is it within the automotive industry in itself? And also talk about technology transfer. How are we seeing it also rubbing off across other areas? And what are some of the present gaps that are still there?
So the problem is actually quite severe, more than people would assume. I would say at the beginning we have foundational training, which we, for example, for technician, and that comes from the IPRCs. And that is quite decent. It's actually a good start. Once they start to work in the workshop, they need at least 3 years of training, of certification. And one of the big challenges that we didn't have in Rwanda until recently, trainers who could train. And so the choice was to send them to South Africa, which is complicated, or to fly in trainers, which is very costly. And if you don't have trained technicians, you can't have warranty on the car. There are many things that cannot happen because of that. And so what we are now trying to do is to localize the training of trainers. There are different partnerships we are having. For example, we have one coming up with the European Union to create a center of excellence for trainers, especially with regards to electric vehicles, that can then train locally the staff. And another big challenge we had is that even you could have a workshop technician who would have graduated without a driving license. So you could understand the skills gap was really high, and not so high in terms of theory. As I said, they get quite a decent theory from IPRC, but in terms of practice, in terms of exposure. And it is the reason why also then that can translate into problems when you are servicing the vehicle. And what I can say is that we worked on it from the ground up. And there are different levels you need in a good workshop to be certified. And for master technician, the one who really runs the workshop, it takes even more years. And so we are working on it. And where needed, we bridge the skills gap with experts from headquarters. But I would say it is quite surprising that, in as much as cars have been in Rwanda for a long time, we didn't have on the market actually well-trained technicians. And that's true for many brands. And I think that speaks to the challenge. It's not only just in Rwanda. When you are building up a value chain, you really realize that for skills to be locally available, it takes time. Unfortunately, there is no shortcut.
One of the key challenges was finding skilled technicians with the expertise needed to support the growing operations.
We can work on between like 30 to 40 car per day. It depends on the complaint. For service, it is a push. It is in and out. So first service, we are doing it on with 36 minutes. So there is a second service we call service and inspection. It is 1.5 hours. So the target we have here on each hoist, we have to sell 8 hours per day. It means that each technician must push like 5 vehicles on hoist. It means we have 8 hoists. We can push like 40 cars per day. Currently, we have 6 senior technicians. All the technicians, they are very qualified technicians. They trained with VW. Some of them, they're on level of diagnostic technician. Others, they are on high voltage technician. Because here we are serving even electric vehicles. Even me, I have a certificate of master technician, so for VW, and the high voltage expert technician.
When you're looking across the automotive industry here in Rwanda, what are some of the opportunities that you see for local entrepreneurs, local suppliers?
We've started by being really directly involved in the market, and we've been pulling back more and more to become more on wholesale basis. So for example, as I said, in ride-hailing, we work now more with taxi cooperatives, people who buy our cars and then use our application, and then that's their business. Even for workshop, we are not going to be able to do workshops everywhere. For example, we are looking for partners in secondary cities such as Musanze, and that's also an opportunity. Selling parts as well. So we are pulling back to be more on wholesale because it was important for us to be involved in the direct business, to show what is possible, to also optimize our own supply chain. And then whenever we find that something is mature enough, we pull back and become wholesaler. And you find that the opportunities are quite many. Even in spaces that are more linked to what we know Rwanda is very good at, for example, in digital skills. For example, we don't have a local, really localized system of car tracking. You find that the people who do it are all relying on some white label solutions from abroad. And so that's an opportunity as well because you have big fleet owners that would need a very good telematics of cars, of tracking the vehicle. There are opportunities around the charging infrastructure. There are opportunities even around the customization of vehicles, what we call after-sales fitments. And we've started to work with local entrepreneurs in that regard.
Innovation is disrupting all sectors globally. When you're looking at the automotive sector here in Rwanda, how do we plan for the next 10 years? Or how will even the sector itself look within 10 years?
10 years ago, we started almost 10 years ago. When we started, it was a new thing to have new cars in mobility services. The showrooms were not that many. And generally, people were used to the used vehicles. Now, 10 years later, you see a showroom every corner, every neighborhood. You see people used to new cars because of the EVs from China, not only our vehicles. You see that people now, which is good, are willing to buy new vehicles. I mean, the size of the market has grown. The people who could afford new vehicles 10 years ago and now is totally different. You can even, everyone looks at their own circle of friends. There are many more people. When you go now to a wedding, the biggest headache is the parking. That we didn't used to have that. So you find that things are evolving. And now the good thing is that Rwanda has a very progressive policy when it comes to automotive, when it comes to EVs. We are hearing that there are even more policies in the pipeline. So I would see that Rwanda can play a big role, especially on these new types of vehicles that are basically computer on wheels. You would need a lot of good regulation around the vehicle because the vehicle will be smart, will have self-driving functions, driver assist systems that need a safe environment to operate in. You would need good infrastructure in terms of the whole smart city. You would need also a very good internet network. And all these are things in which Rwanda has invested a lot in it. And I would also say that what we've realized in the automotive industry is that the quality of the regulation is more important than the size of the market. And this is true for Rwanda. Rwanda is a relatively small market, but with the quality of regulation that is high, that's why you found that many OEMs have launched their first product in Rwanda. We have one of our biggest competitor, BYD, launched their Africa EV strategy in Rwanda. So you find that Rwanda can continue playing a role alongside these hard tasks, what you can call hard tasks, around the automotive industry, and provide also, as I said, right now people travel long distances to go for efficient training around there on cars, for testing, for laboratories, and then ultimately the big opportunity will reside in the transformation of minerals so that you can be in the value chain of battery manufacturing.
And now, even looking at, you've touched on the market share for Rwanda, you've touched on competition. Competition is rising within the country in itself. How are you navigating the landscape, and how is the demand compared to the production and what we have within the market?
So it's a hard journey. Basically, the competition is redefining the market in a sense that the competition now is pushing the market towards pure electric vehicles and more SUVs in different sizes. So if you are predominantly selling internal combustion engines, meaning fuel vehicles, you find that your market size is not growing. But even the competition, you are not competing with other people per se, but the market is being played elsewhere. So you need to follow suit. You need to also provide affordable electric vehicles. And that's what we are now embarking on. We have a partnership now with Volkswagen China. We have a big presence in China so that we can be the partner for all the brands of Volkswagen in China to sell those cars locally on the market, even for the whole of Africa. And we are now going to introduce those vehicles. They are going to be also electric, also in the SUV, and also affordable. And I believe we can then continue our growth journey.
And that wraps up today's episode of Business and Beyond. We got to understand the electric mobility journey here in Rwanda. We got to see how farmers are leveraging on technology to improve on agriculture productivity. You're with me, Naringwa Fianamotoni.